This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
The Taliban say Afghan women can study, but only in gender-segregated universities. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed celebrates Ethiopian New Year alongside his top military generals. And South Africans and international tourists flock to watch whales in Hermanus. Hello and welcome. You're watching Africa Live. We're coming to live from Nairobi. I'm Hannah Viviers. Here are more stories making headlines. Foreign ministers of Egypt, Palestine, and Jordan meet to discuss revival of Israeli-Palestinian peace talks. And we look at how a bird sanctuary in Zimbabwe is trying to change local superstitions about owls. Well, Taliban officials have ordered schools in Afghanistan to be segregated by gender. The group announced on Sunday that women would be allowed to study in universities. However, they must be separated from men. We asked the Taliban's education minister about the gender segregation policy. Here's what he had to say.
A good example of this could be the private education institutions. Private universities suggested to hold separate classes for men and women, and we have seen no negative impact. You can easily ask any private university in Kabul or other cities regarding the new policy and how it has affected them or positively changed things.
Taliban officials say Islamic dress code will also be mandatory, but they didn't specify what that meant. The Taliban have repeatedly claimed that their attitudes towards women have evolved since the 1990s, when women and girls were forbidden from holding jobs or going to school. The Taliban is urging educated Afghans in the meantime to return to the country.
If you look back, you will realize that thousands of our talented youth were deprived of an education due to the principles and policies set by the former government. In the future, we want to facilitate opportunities for such talents so that they would serve their people. Individuals who have fled the country due to fear, we can convince them to return. Those who stayed can persuade Afghans residing abroad to return to the country. Those who had been living abroad before the power transition and have gained good experiences, we will do our best to create opportunities for them to return.
Well, 9/11 reshaped U.S. foreign policy towards the Islamic world, declaring war on terror. The U.S. invaded Afghanistan back in October of 2001 with a stated goal of eliminating al-Qaeda. NATO forces also overthrew the Taliban and installed a new government. The violence that followed reshaped the lives of Afghans still living in uncertain times after the U.S. withdrawal. Abdul Hadi Dariz has more from Kabul.
20 years later, and with at least $2 trillion spent by the U.S., this is Afghanistan, a country left in ruin, an economy that's on the brink of collapse. For most Afghans, nothing much has changed in the last 20 years to improve the quality of their lives. According to the UNDP's 2020 Human Development Report, which measures standards of living, Afghanistan has a low human development status, placing 169 out of 189 countries and territories. For Abdul Mubin Cobbler in Kabul, the occupation did not benefit the country's poor. With most government funds frozen and foreign aid suspended, he doubts things will change.
Nothing has changed for the common people because only lists were taken for aid. Nothing was done. The poor people of Afghanistan didn't receive any support.
Aside from the devastation and instability wrought by years of conflict, many blame corruption for Afghanistan's current state.
To be really honest and frankly, in the previous government, there were a few chances for those people who were not having the particular relationships and, all people are in picture and all know that there were a few chances to get the positions. There were the nepotism, cronyism, and favoritism.
But the past 20 years were not without gains. More opportunities for women and children paved the way for an educated and skilled generation.
Nearly 2 decades later, I was able to go back to my village, which I left in 2001 or 2. I really saw some changes, some positive developments in my village, in that rural area. I found people are having access at least to the solar electricity. There were clinics, there were schools, female students were there, and I saw the college there. Girls were pursuing their education to 14 years.
Generations of Afghans will remember the past 20 years for different reasons. Some will see it as America's failed war, while others will consider it as a missed opportunity to improve the lives of Afghans. But the most pressing is that how Kabul's new government will change a country whose future is uncertain. Abdul Hadi Dariz, CGTN, Kabul.
Meanwhile, some Afghans had fled their country due to decades of war say they want to return home now. Daniel Khan spoke to some of them at a refugee camp built in neighboring Pakistan during the Cold War and sent this report.
Following the Soviet invasion, millions of Afghans crossed the border into Pakistan, seeking refuge from the ravages of war. In 2001, the US attacked the country and millions more were displaced. They fled their country and found shelter in Pakistan.
This is Saranan Afghan refugee camp, about 90 kilometers from the Chaman-Spin-Boldak border. It is one of 54 Afghan refugee camps operational in Pakistan. The refugee population of these camps is over 1 million. This is in addition to the millions who have moved to major urban centers of the country.
With the assistance of the United Nations, since 2002, nearly 4 million Afghan refugees have repatriated back to Afghanistan. But those who stayed back have their reasons. Muhammad Agha Isaaqzai left Afghanistan when he was 25. He says he lost everything during the war between the Mujahideen and Soviet forces. When the Taliban defeated the Mujahideen, we were happy and thought we could finally go back home. But then America invaded Afghanistan and our hope was lost. But finally, after 20 years, my country is free from foreign occupation. The Taliban have promised to help us, and I think the time has come for us to go back. Zahir Pashtun came to Saranan when he was a little boy and now manages the affairs of the camp. He shows us documents of his family's property and hopes the Taliban will release it from the land mafia. For us, Afghanistan is like our mother. We have hundreds of acres of land, but the people of the Northern Alliance have illegally seized our land. When the US came and spoke about democracy, it was nothing but lies. We just want the Taliban to help us get our land back, and I know they will fulfill their promises because they are honest Muslims. Many of those trying to get out of Afghanistan fear revenge from the Taliban after working for foreign governments. But the elders at the camp say they will have better lives in Afghanistan and are confident that the end of the conflict would bring a brighter future for the generations to come. Daniel Khan, CGTN, Saranan Refugee Camp, Southwest Pakistan.
We head over to Ethiopia now, where Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, along with his top military generals, celebrated the Ethiopian New Year. The festivities took place in the northern part of the country. Abiy delivered a speech to soldiers at the war front line, saying that he appreciated the sacrifice of the army.
I'm so excited to celebrate the New Year of hope, greatness and prosperity with you. Happy New Year to you all. We are building an ultra-modern defense force, something which has never been seen over the last 100 years of our country's history. You will soon see which developments we are talking about. Our Air Force is strengthened more than what it has seen over the last 40 years. The Commando and Sparta, airborne and different units of the army, are being built with huge efficiency. These rebels are our training ground. Our training is performed in their presence.
Egyptian, Palestinian and Jordanian foreign ministers met this week in Cairo to extend the months-long Egyptian-led initiative to revive Israeli-Palestinian peace talks. Following the Gaza war between Israel and Hamas in May, Egypt has been trying to revive the peace talks. Cairo first brokered a truce between Palestinians and the Israelis, and earlier this month it hosted a summit with Palestine and Jordan. Here's Adel Emrouhi with the details.
Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry brought to his round table his Jordanian and Palestinian counterparts Ayman al-Safadi and Riyad al-Maliki. This is a continuation of their nation's trilateral summit, which Cairo hosted earlier in September. The diplomats tackled the latest developments in the Palestinian crisis, including efforts recently exerted to relaunch peace talks.
Egypt is moving in three tracks. It's moving in West Bank, in Gaza, and with the Israeli side. It's defining the final details and bringing points of views closer. Besides Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, Israel is the party that can make a deal happen and restore peace in the region. Egypt is also working with the United States to reach a middle ground.
After Egypt brokered the ceasefire in May between Hamas and Israel, it used the 11 days war between the two to set in motion a new peace campaign. Egyptian diplomats and intelligence delegations have focused on ending division between the Palestinians. They're also working on a new prisoners exchange agreement that could see hundreds of Palestinians released from Israeli custody.
When you see the Egyptian-Jordanian persistence recently, you get the impression that there is a strong will to make this new initiative succeed. The details of this new peace deal have not been announced yet, but we know that there must be a Palestinian solidarity between the authority, Hamas, and the Palestinian factions. That will enable us to defend our rights.
The Cairo Trilateral Ministerial Gathering was the final coordination meeting between Egypt, Jordan and Palestine ahead of the UN General Assembly, which is set for September 14. That's where the three nations will be discussing their idea of a two-state solution. Egypt wants to align visions between all Arab stakeholders for a one solution to the Palestinian crisis. After discussing it with the international community in New York, Arab leaders will be discussing it further in a summit Algeria will host. Adel Emrouhi, CGTN, Cairo.
Zimbabwe has begun daily 12-hour power cuts. This is due to limited electricity generation at its thermal plant at Hwangwe Power Station. According to Zimbabwe's Electricity Transmission and Distribution Company, repairs are being made on the dam at the nearest hydro power station. The power shortfall is being managed through load shedding in order to balance the power supply available. The Hwangwe Thermal Power Station is the country's biggest, with an installed capacity of 920 megawatts. But it suffers frequent breakdowns due to aging equipment. The plant in western Zimbabwe is undergoing an expansion to add 600 megawatts. Let's now take a short break and return. South Africans and international tourists flock to watch whales in Hermanus. And we look at how a bird sanctuary in Zimbabwe is trying to change local superstitions about owls.
The East China Sea, home of dream seekers, where China's hub for reform and opening up connects with the maritime Silk Road. Whether it's exploring the busiest seaport and trade zone, or witnessing how locals strive for a better life. Join CGTN's adventure, Tides of Change Part 2. A journey enchanted by a dynamic ocean and beyond.
Welcome back. You're watching Africa Live. We head over to South Africa now, where every year southern right and humpback whales migrate from icy feeding grounds off the Antarctica coast to warmer climates reaching South Africa. The country's coastal waters teem with the gentle giants that have come to mate, calve, and rear their young. The town of Hermanus on the Cape South coast offers one of the best land-based whale watching sites in the world. Even with this year's whale festival cancelled again due to the pandemic, people are still flocking to see these spectacular creatures. CGTN's Julie Shaya brings us more.
It's that time of the year when whale season is in full swing in the Cape, and whale watching groups get a chance to see these magnificent creatures.
And seeing these gentle giants is quite good for the soul, and just reminds you that there's a world far beyond what we have here on land.
The spectacle brings migratory southern right and humpback whales to this area as they look for warmer waters to birth and nurse their calves before returning to Antarctica.
Yeah, we're very lucky. We're positioned essentially right at the southern tip of the African continent. These whales spend about 6 months of every year further down south in the sub-Antarctic oceans. That's where they do the majority of their feeding. Namanis is a beautiful protected bay. We have Walker Bay just behind us, and that is the reason why they come up.
Before the pandemic, this little town used to celebrate the arrival of whales with a festival, boosting both tourism and the dwindling whale population.
Taking it from COVID, the impacts have been huge. The struggle is real. We are seeing an influx of international tourists, not to what we used to know, but at least it is small baby steps in the right direction. Hermanus, for some reason, they have decided that this is their favorite place to be.
Conservationists hope that working closely with the tourism industry will help protect these whales.
What it can do is it creates awareness, and that awareness in turn grows the conservation of the wildlife and the marine life out in the bay. So if you've got that educational component and you focus on that, then the guests walk away knowing more, and that knowledge is power, and that's how we will increase conservation for the whales and the marine life.
Southern right whales, I guess you could call the stars of the show here. They, at one stage, were hunted to near extinction with only a few hundred animals of them left. However, in 1935, they became an endangered species.
Their survival is fundamental for the health of the world's oceans.
We need to think about the future. We don't have to think about us as we are now. We must think about the future, like the future generation. Okay, we are here, we can see the world. What about the kids that are going to be born thereafter? Are they going to have the same chance of seeing the whales? So it's very important to preserve them for the future.
The Whale Festival may have been cancelled again for a second year, but it hasn't kept visitors away from enjoying the beauty of getting a glimpse at southern right whales and understanding their unique ways. Julie Shah, CGTN, Hermanos, South Africa.
In some communities in Africa, the sighting of an owl is superstitiously believed to be a warning sign of impending misfortune or even linked to acts of sorcery. One owner of a bird sanctuary in Zimbabwe is, however, determined to change that perception and educate people about owls. Faraima Kutia reports.
A frightening aura has been woven around the owl, making it the emblem of negativity, for strong reasons, according to some.
Owls are not good because they usually move at night. If there was nothing sinister about them, we would see them by day. But we only see them at night because that's when they are sent by those who want to do bad things.
However, others believe the winged creature is the victim of uninformed superstition.
I'm at the Kuimbashiri Bird Sanctuary on the outskirts of Harare. There are over 170 different types of birds here that have either been orphaned or injured. It is home to 9 out of the 12 owl species found in Zimbabwe.
Lifelong bird enthusiast Gary Stafford is trying to demystify stories about the bird.
People love to create stories about things they don't understand. And owls is one of them. And of course, the owls get the blame for a lot of things. But of course, it's not true. And a lot of us are taught that owls are nocturnal. It's not true. Most owls will fly in the daytime as well.
He is highlighting the owl's role in maintaining a natural balance.
Owls like to live with near people. Not all of them. But the barn owl, the spotted eagle owl, they like to live with people because they eat the rats that human habitation attracts. So when people are living there, they throw food out everywhere, they litter, rats breed, and the owls eat that.
Perceptions are changing. Aspiring conservationist Tondirai Madzia never imagined he would get up close and personal with an owl, but has built such a strong bond with 4-month-old Oscar, who's at the sanctuary with a broken wing.
The first time I received Oscar, I was scared. And my supervisor here, last one, he said, when you're training birds, a bird have to sleep before you sleep. And our boss said you have to take it home, or whether you can take it, you can keep Oscar here. So I decided, I know I can keep Oscar here. So I started to keep Oscar, feeding him 4 times a day.
More minds are being changed as thousands of people visit the sanctuary every year and come away with a better understanding of the owl. Farai Mwakutuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Well, here's what's still to come on Africa Live. In sport, FIBA Africa launches inaugural basketball youth camp in Nairobi.
It's just taken me completely out of my depth, but at the same time it's exciting. It's new, it's different, it's a challenge.
It's really exciting.
Time now for a look at what's happening in the world of sport. 45 young basketball players from Africa have benefited from a skills development camp held by FIBA Africa at Nairobi's Nyayo Indoor Arena. The camp, which is the first of 3 legs, ran for 4 days and was conducted by high